Fantastic having everyone. So with that, let me introduce Paul Dupuis, a global leader with a commendable track record in hands-on business growth and transformational leadership. Paul Dupuis is the founder and CEO of Take 5 Global KK, a consultancy firm focused on leadership development, coaching, and management consulting. During his tenure as managing director and CEO of Randstad India in 2017 to 21, Paul led the turnaround of the company to become the leader in the Indian market. Paul was recognized by the Great Place to Work Institute as one of India's best leaders in times of crisis 2021. He then went on to become the CEO and chairman of Randstad Japan from 2021 to 23, where he led one of the largest operating companies for Randstad globally. A passionate ice hockey player, Paul is a Guinness World Record holder as the organizer of an ice hockey game at the highest elevation ever on a frozen lake in Ladakh in the Himalayas. Paul is also the author of the best-selling book, The E5 Movement, a book that gave the world the visionary Rule of Five leadership model that is built in the spirit of standing on the shoulder of giants, learning from leaders such as Konosuke Matsushita, the founder of Panasonic, Bob McDonald of Procter & Gamble, Jack Welch, and Jim Collins. And it is this book that has inspired the innovative Future Ready Leadership Gym, which we are here to launch today. Welcome, Paul. It is so great to have you here.
Well, thank you, Judy, for that very warm introduction. Greetings, everyone, from Tokyo here in Japan. Very excited to be here today. And thank you to so many as I look through the chat, a lot of good friends and some old friends. Azuma-san from Osaka, Japan, who is an old friend from Singapore, Azuma-san, Jose Miguel in Portugal, Siobhan in Malaysia, so many friends in India. Really wonderful to see everybody here today. Thank you.
Great to have you, Paul. Once again, welcome. And I would now like to introduce our panelists, Dr. Annurag Batra. Dr. Annurag Batra is a first-generation entrepreneur, an angel investor, a TV show host, an author, mentor to many budding entrepreneurs, and an educationist. Dr. Batra is founder of Exchange for Media Group and the chairman and editor-in-chief of BW Businessworld Media Group, which is in its 42nd year and amongst the topmost respected business media platforms globally. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Batra. It's such a pleasure to have you here today.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here, and I look forward to, talking to the webinar attendees on why Paul Dupuis and what he has to offer to all of us in terms of leadership training is the right way forward and can help each one of us.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Vinay Kumar, the founding director of C2C OD. Vinay is a leadership coach and organizational development specialist and an IAF certified professional facilitator master. He is passionate about building a facilitative leadership culture in organizations and has worked closely with leadership teams in over 30 countries across Asia, Europe, Middle East, and Americas. Vinay is widely recognized for his work with leaders across all levels, and that includes coaching CXOs, managing directors, and partners. Welcome, Vinay.
Thanks so much, Suti. Hey, everybody. Pleasure to connect with you and looking forward to this fun conversation.
Thank you so much, everyone. And with that, let's talk about what leadership looks like today. So, Annurag, this question goes out to you first. What are some of the challenges and opportunities that you see in leadership today?
Leadership first, even 30 years back was about leading from the front, leading by example. I think the need for that is even more. The biggest thing in COVID and post-COVID has been dealing with uncertainty. The word resilience came into forefront. So leaders have to be resilient and they have to build resilient teams. And the third is the ability to deal with uncertainty. How do you deal with uncertainty? How do you take one step at a day? How do you deal with, what you have in front of you while you prepare for what you have? And last but not the least, leadership is about emotional safety. How do you give emotional safety to your people, even in a time of crisis, in a time of transition, in a time of unforeseen challenges, and stay focused on what one has to do. So I think these are the leadership challenges. The opportunities are that technologies that available to us, whether to make things happen in a flexible way. There is a hybrid approach to work. Beauty is that, some of the old principles still hold true of empathy, compassion, of putting people first. And the biggest opportunity is that there is a young workforce. So they are very, very aware. They are very, very vocal. So by doing the right listening, you can provide solutions, you can provide ideas, you can provide inspiration. So listening is an opportunity. Correction is an opportunity. And as I said at the start, people who, today we have leaders, coaches, facilitators, mentors, whatever word, who have done it, who have seen it, who may not know the future, but they've learned some things in the past which hold true forever. And that's what they can pass on to people.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing your view, Dr. Batra. Vinay, over to you. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Riti. And Anurag hit some of the key points. I'll just add just three more. One is agility. That's both a challenge and an opportunity. How can leaders be agile? Because the ecosystem, the organizations, and everything else has become more agile. The second is, maybe the second's actually something that, because all leaders have got better, to what Anurag said 20, 30 years ago, we were talking to leaders about emotional intelligence. Today, that's a given. So it's how do we connect with the workforce? How do we take them along? And that goes to my third point. Again, Anurag talked about information's available everywhere. We have the digital generations along. So how can we leverage the collective wisdom of the workforce that we have? I would say those are the top opportunities as well as challenges.
Yeah. And that's an interesting take, right? Where we have opportunity, there could be some challenges, and it depends on how we drive it as leaders. So, Paul, over to you. How do you see this?
Well, wonderful definitions and thoughts from my colleagues Annurag and Vinay. I would add a couple of points. First of all, there's a wonderful quote from Peter Drucker, who said that the leader of the past knew how to tell. The leader of the future knows how to ask. And I think that's a really key point for many of us who came up as leaders in this generation. What we experienced was leadership was about knowing, it was about providing answers and helping people solve problems, when now it's actually more about listening and, I would say, enabling, which is something I'm quite passionate about. So I think leadership is really now about enabling. It's also about knowing when to use Anurag's point about pace-setting leadership, knowing when to set the pace, to be the leader at the front, and also knowing when to shift to become leader from behind, as supportive, or by the side, or participative in the middle, or sometimes simply not being there, giving space, what we would call freedom in the frame, right? And the third part I would say is, and this is a lesson we all learned during COVID, during times of crisis and tragedy, that one of the most important role of the leader is to make people feel safe, to provide an environment where they can feel safe psychologically, of course, physically, and also where every single member of the team can be their true self and shine. In other words, work becomes fun when everyone is shining. So creating an environment where everybody can shine. I would say those are really important kind of qualities of leadership for today. And then we'll shift into what does it mean for tomorrow and the day after tomorrow.
Yeah, and I believe that's a concept that you do cover in the book as well. And you've called it game-changing leadership. So Paul, would love to know a little bit more about, what does it mean when you say game-changing leadership? What do you have in mind?
Sure. Well, first of all, let's think about what it really means to be a leader, and then the difference between leadership and management. And this is my definition, and we all create our own version of leadership. Here's mine. Managers are very important. They are the kind of the oil in the machine. They follow processes. They ensure that timelines are adhered to, SOPs, and so on. In other words, they keep things running smoothly. This is what managers do. They're very important to an organization. In other words, managers play the game. They play the game well. They follow the rules. They stay within the frame. Leaders, on the other hand, don't just play the game. They attempt to change the game. And in a positive way, not for the change for the sake of change, but change for the better than yesterday. And we talk often about the different kinds of leadership. There's tactical leadership, where I think all of us who are here today, we started on the ground floor somewhere. We'll call that in the mud or in the dirt. We started on the front line. And then over time, we were able to work our way up into management and leadership roles. From tactical, you move to strategic, which is where we need to climb up the hill and get a 360 view of the opportunities. Of course, we talk about SWOT, strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats. And then, of course, back down to the ground with our teams to share what we've discovered and to come up with plans. And then, of course, there's the third type of leadership that we often hear about is visionary leadership. And I think this is where a lot of people kind of misunderstand what that means. The game changers over history, when you look at the great leaders over history, and not just in business, by the way, and I talk a lot about this in my book, that great leadership is timeless and borderless. It goes across arenas, whether it's business, politics, the arts, science, sports, and so on. The great leaders share a common characteristic. They are visionary. And visionary doesn't mean being a fortune teller. Visionary leadership is about being able to peek around the corner before you get there, to anticipate what's coming. And how do you do that? You do that through past experience. That's the wisdom that comes with being an experienced leader. Through successes and missteps, that creates wisdom. So that's visionary leadership. So putting all of that together, knowing when to take those bold moves, to make changes in an organization that will ensure that we're ready before we arrive to that corner, before we have to turn that corner, that we're well prepared. And I would call that future readiness. And that's really what game-changing leadership is all about.
Awesome. It definitely sounds like something all leaders would want to be. I mean, who wouldn't want to be ready for the future, right? Based on the experiences and all. So thank you for sharing that, Paul. And it brings us actually to one of my most anticipated and favorite moments, which is us showing our trailer of the Future Ready Leadership Gym, our blockbuster trailer. So let's see it. Let's see what we have in store.
How are you doing as a leader? Is your vision compelling? Are you expressing that vision effectively to your team? Is your team excited about your vision? Are you enabling your team to bring that vision to life? And finally, are the wheels of execution moving and moving in the right direction? Greetings, I'm Paul Dupuis, and I'm pleased to present this very special e-learning program called the Future Ready Leadership Gym. Based on my best-selling book, The E5 Movement, Leadership Through the Rule of 5. Join me in this journey to help you bring your vision as a leader, no, a future-ready leader, to life and create a game-changing movement. Together, we will explore and build those critical future-ready muscles of envision, express, excite, enable, and execute, to ensure that the teams we lead are ready not only for today and tomorrow, but be prepared for the day after tomorrow. See you in the Future Ready Leadership Gym.
And we're done. All right. So Congratulations, Paul. It's a fantastic program. I have been lucky enough to see a little bit about what this program entails. And I think we did get a sneak peek into the 5 E's in the trailer itself. So Paul, would love to know from you, what is the story behind this program, Future Ready Leadership Gym?
Sure, I'm happy to share. Well, first of all, it's really wonderful watching this video. We talk about the 5 E's. This, in a way, is a great example of people coming together, rallying around a vision and bringing it to execution. This was an idea that we had together some time ago. The idea of taking the lessons learned along my own journey from other leaders standing on the shoulders of giants and from the book that I wrote, the E5 Movement, and turning it into a micro-learning or an e-learning program. And like I think a lot of people here on the call, we were all very interested in health. Well, and I think this was something we all learned the importance of, especially when we think about COVID. We learned about mental health and physical health, and that life and leadership is a marathon, not a sprint. So taking care of ourselves. And hence was born this idea that leadership is really about muscles. It's about a series of muscles that we need to build. And so the concept of the Future Ready Leadership Gym was born. Watching the video, some great memories, by the way. The story behind the story for everyone who's watching today is I went to Bangalore, it's 4 or 5 months now ago, and spent 3 days in a studio with a green screen with the team from C2C, very talented, dynamic team. And we recorded the sessions. There are a total of 11 segments, or let's say sessions and videos. They all run from between 5 to 7 or 8 minutes. Each video is on a specific theme, or we'll call it a muscle, and also includes some exercises as well. So that's kind of part of the journey. But let me just explain briefly about the E5 and what the concept is. This really was, I was inspired to write the book when I was based in India as CEO of Randstad India. We had more than 70 offices across the country, more than 60,000 employees across many, many different industries. And I was thinking a lot about, what does it mean to be a leader in a dynamic, complex environment with such unpredictability? And so I was thinking about the leaders that have walked before us and leaders that I've learned from. And you heard some of those names earlier, Dhruti, that you mentioned. And as Isaac Newton said, we see further when we stand on the shoulders of those who went in front of us. And leadership thinking goes right back to the beginning of time. Even philosophers, Aristotle talked about leadership. So it really comes down to creating your own version of leadership, your own ism. And so I've come up with mine built on the back of others, and that's the E5. The first E, as you heard, was envision. And envision, in my mind, is really about starting with a vision that is rooted in why. Jim Rohn, the author and the leadership thinker, said, when the why is clear, the how is easy. So this is where a lot of leaders do struggle. And certainly I, in the past, had a hard time with this. Pace-setting leaders go straight to what, how much, how many, when in fact we should start with why. So next, you have a vision. It's touching the hearts and minds. That's envision. Next is to take it out to the world. Express, the second E, express. And in our current world, very different than the past, we have a multitude of options on how we can express. We'll call this the omni-channel, learning lessons from the e-commerce companies around us. So using various avenues, routes to connect with people, to capture their hearts and minds and ensure they digest the vision and that they get the 30, excite. And that's when people start to lean in. They start to want to be part of this vision, to bring it to life. They raise their hand. They want to be involved. And that's a moment of truth. That's where the momentum starts. And of course, that's when a movement is born, hence the E5 movement. The fourth E is very important. It's critical. And I would say this is, again, where I'm at in my own leadership journey. It's about enable, creating an environment where everybody can shine, where they can bring that vision to life, giving the tools, the space to move, to experiment, so on. The enabling leader breaks down walls for people to shine. And then finally, from the beginning of time to the end of time, the ultimate measurement of effective leadership is execute, bringing that compelling vision to life for impact. And that's really the E5. And so from that, we've created this very unique micro-learning e-learning program, which is a video learning series. It begins with the first step, self-paced learning over these video episodes with some challenges, with some, we'll call them assignments or leadership exercises along the way to help build those muscles to be future ready. Then, of course, from there, we continue on to, there are 2 more parts, which we'll talk about here together, Dhruti.
Great, fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Paul. So right from being very clear about the why to bringing and talking about the impact, bringing the entire vision to life, that's the whole, I believe it's the heart and soul of the Future Ready Leadership Gym in that sense. And I guess leaders will get a brilliant opportunity to collaborate with you on that. So I'm sure that's something to look forward to as well. When we think about leaders, Paul, who are you thinking of, as we think about these future ready leaders in the gym, who comes to mind?
Yeah. Well, first of all, if you talk about who would benefit from this, I think it's kind of asking the same question as the gym, Dhruti, who would benefit from going to the gym to get fit, to get in shape? I think we all would, right? We all would. And I think it's the same thing for leadership. By the way, whether you're a leader of people or not, we are all leaders of ourselves, of our own lives, right? So by nature, we are all leaders. I would say that anyone who is on the leadership journey, whether you're currently a leader or you're on your way to becoming a leader, regardless of the stage in your journey, we've created this leadership gym with that in mind. So all of the exercises, the content that comes along with it is designed for anyone who has leadership as an ambition, as a goal, or as something they want to be stronger at. So it could be a young aspiring leader. It could be the CEO of a large, complex operation. Certainly anyone who's on the leadership path, the gym is designed for you. So think of it just like a normal gym, right? We walk in, and in order to build those muscles, we have to do the work.
Absolutely. Thanks, Paul. Vinay, I believe you've had the opportunity to experience the program to a certain extent. Would love to know what makes this program so unique for you.
Well, yeah, thanks, Ruthi. And I know Paul from his day 2 or day 3 when he landed in India. And normally when we're in the field of leadership, you often read books and they'll give you a framework. What makes this thing unique is Paul is the case study. He implemented it first and then brought some structure to how he did it. That makes it very, very unique, because when you look at leadership models, you sort of look at that and then they create case studies of it. Here's one example, the E5 movement. I actually saw Paul implementing every single one of these steps. And the book came much later. It was almost Paul sitting down and reflecting what's the steps he went through, what's the turnaround story that he made. And that's what makes it exciting, because if you want to see an ROI, people ask, is it application oriented? This is built on application. That would be my one big differentiator here.
That's fantastic. So you actually lived it before you wrote something about it. Great to know that. Thanks for sharing that, Vinay. And Annurag, you've known Paul for quite some time as well. What got you excited about the Future Ready Leadership Gym?
I'd say 3 things, Ruthi. First is, as Vinay said, let me put that in a different context. Somebody asked what is important. Is it the destination or is it the journey? And the master replied, it's the company. So really, Paul, as Vinay said, has done it. So really, it's the gym instructor has built his own body to a healthy body and a fit body. So you can take training from them. If your gym instructor is himself not healthy, then you possibly shouldn't go to that gym, right? So Paul is a healthy gym instructor. He has used the same principle that he is advocating in his book and through the Future Ready Leadership Gym class. Second is, at the end of the day, when you learn something, there has to be a structure, because you can only absorb something bit by bit by bit, internalize it, do the exercises, and at some stage become proficient. The Future Ready Leadership Gym experiential learning is designed in a way that you internalize, implement, and hence build muscle. And the third, which is the most important, I must say, while the course is the course, by interacting with Paul, you learn empathy. You learn about relationships. And most importantly, you learn about, if I may use the word, sounds like a very big word, execution. He had an idea of a book, he executed. He had an idea of a course, that's happened. So he's manifested it. So you're talking to a person who's living what he is preaching. It is a context, it is a framework, there are the tools, but it's not theory in that sense. So that's the reason. And that one inspiration from one video gives you one idea or one tool that you can implement, could change a life. So that's what I'd say. And I'd encourage everyone to sign up for this.
Yep. Thank you so much for sharing that, Anurag. And just a quick shout out to our audience, to those who are dialed in. Once again, thank you so much for joining in. If you have any questions while I'm asking these questions to Paul, Anurag, and Vinay, it'll be great if you can insert your questions in the Q&A as well. We'll be coming to that real shortly. And once again, don't forget, towards the end of the webinar, we will be sharing a QR code where you can download the program details and you stand a chance to win signed copy of Paul's The E5 Movement book. So stay tuned, folks, and keep the questions coming. Thank you so much. Let's take a look at what Paul alluded to, right? A little bit about the program. What does that look like? Would love to take the audience through that a little bit. Let's take a look at this leadership journey. What does it really have in store for you? So as Paul rightly mentioned, he was kind enough to, come to Bangalore and recorded some fantastic videos, which is our e-learning content. It is self-paced. There'll be, knowledge checks. There'll be real life stories. You'll get a chance to practice leadership in the way you're supposed to, make it as relevant to your real life as possible in that sense. So that's the video e-learning part of it. Post which you would have a face-to-face mastermind workshop with Paul himself. This is a one-day program. It's action-packed. You will have so many things to reflect upon, and there are group activities because we do believe that there are different kinds of learners, right? Some people are more somatic, some are more visual, some are more intellectually stimulated. So all of that has been taken into account. Whatever your learning style, you will have something to take away. Of course, there'll be role plays towards the end to see how all of this manifests into real life. And this is something that I always believe has the highest impact. And to what Anurag said, each one of you will have something to take away from this workshop for sure, once you start reflecting on some of the learnings that you have. And the final and my favorite, something that I believe each one of us over here in the panel has benefited from immensely, is the coaching aspect of this, the one-on-one coaching with Paul, where you will have virtual or hybrid sessions with Paul. It'll be one-on-one personalized coaching, which means that this is your opportunity to make it real for you, to make it relevant for yourself. Of course, with support from Paul. He's a fantastic coach, of course, and we are lucky to have him. So this is how the journey looks like. As Paul rightly mentioned, it's for literally anybody. And I think we would have heard of the book Leader Without a Title, right? You don't really have to be a leader or a director of anything in order to benefit from this program. If you aspire to become a leader, this is for you. So again, stay tuned. You'll have the QR code where you can download the program details to know more about what each element would entail. Thank you so much. Paul, anything that you want to add over here?
Thank you, Jyoti. What a wonderful explanation. I would say the video e-learning, you got a taste of it just now in that trailer. But I have to say, there's also another very critical element in this program. And Annurag kind of talked about it, walking in the gym should not be torture. It should be some fun. There should be some fun there. So we have some fun in this program. We had a lot of fun making it, I must tell you. 3 days, morning till night in the studio. And you saw at the end how we wrapped it up with a bit of dance moves. But throughout the video series, there is some fun as well. So, it really is designed to make the learning journey interesting, fun, and impactful. And as Annurag also said, You know, when I wrote the book, I had one very important North Star, which was that I didn't want this book to be about theory. I wanted it to be about reality and based on tried, tested, proven approaches to changing the game. And the same goes for the leadership gym. These are all effective exercises. We focus on the critical muscles of future-ready leadership. And, you know, the promise that we make is that you'll come out of this gym stronger as a leader, and you'll be able to apply lessons learned right away. There's also something that's not mentioned, it's a small point, but it's important. There's also a workbook that will come along with the program, certainly for the video e-learning. And then with the mastermind, there are some very tangible takeaways in the form of workbook sheets and so on. So for those who are leading, there's also the opportunity to take that back and use it with your teams. So that's the idea of spreading it to a larger audience, cascading. So then you become, let's say, the personal trainer, leadership trainer for your teams.
Yeah, so some very definite takeaways for sure for our audience out there. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I believe, Paul, you also benefited from coaching personally, haven't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. I've had several coaches along my journey, going way back, you know, to, well, 15, 20 years ago. The company Randstad, who I worked for, was very kind to provide a coach, as well as other organizations I work with that had coaches. And then most recently, my coach was Marshall Goldsmith, who many people on this call will know. And the interesting story there, we talk about relationships. Annurag mentioned this, and maybe a bit of serendipity, but in fact, I met Marshall Goldsmith thanks to Annurag. Annurag, if we go back, it must have been 2018, maybe. I was visiting Delhi. You gave me a quick call and said, "Hey, Paul, are you free for breakfast tomorrow?" First of all, I happened to be in Delhi. Secondly, I happened to be free for breakfast, which is a kind of a double whammy, very lucky. So I went, and lo and behold, there was Annurag and Marshall Goldsmith. We had breakfast in Delhi, had a wonderful session together, connected. And then from there, I got involved with a mastermind course with Marshall. Fast forward, he became my coach and has since become a very good friend. There are people in the webinar today, right now, Dhruti, who were with me about 2 months ago in Nashville with Marshall, where we had a very exclusive 1-week train the trainer session with Marshall. About 25 of us from around the world spent some time together with Marshall, and I talked to him a lot about the Future Ready Leadership Gym, and he loves it, the whole concept. He's also very into fitness. You may know he walks 10,000 steps a day. He's a big believer in, you know, leadership as, you know, being connected to fitness, and that the most effective leaders are indeed leaders who focus on their mental as well as their physical health. So we really had a great time talking about the concept, and he's been a big supporter for me along my journey, certainly through those tough days in India, leading the ship through COVID and so on. Marshall was a great coach and also a great friend to lean on as well. So I'm a big fan of coaching. I think everybody should have a coach. It's really interesting when you think about professional athletes, the best at their game. Tiger Woods had a coach. Rafael Nadal had a coach. We can go on and on and on and name all of the high-level athletes. They all have coaches. Isn't that interesting? What about leaders? If leaders really want to be the best in the world at their craft, it's important to have a coach. And so I'm a big fan of coaching, and that's why we built this into the program. If I fast forward a little bit, Dhruti, it's important to share that this is step one as we launch this program. But the idea is also to then train the trainers to build a core of certified future-ready leadership gym facilitators, trainers, coaches, and so on. So that will come down, and, you know, as we move forward into phase 2. There's a lot of interest in this approach, again, which is quite innovative. So more on that to follow, but we start with launching the program, as you just heard.
Absolutely. And I think we do have a glimpse of the workbook in terms of what that looks like over here. I think you alluded to that earlier. Again, something that is designed in a way that is easy to consume, and at the same time, a lot of reflection, because I don't think any of us are where we are without reflecting. So I think we really need to reflect as leaders, and I'm sure people on the call have done that already, but this workbook is designed in a way which will kind of nudge you to reflect a little bit more and challenge you and some of your deep-seated beliefs as well in order to get started with the journey. I think it just starts with that, a little bit of self-awareness in that sense. So, so great. Again, folks, do keep the questions coming. You can type it in the Q&A, which is at the bottom. I think we do have a question here from Padma Kumar. We'll take that, and then I'm going to come back to Annurag and Vinay if they have something else to add to what has already been shared. So let's take the question first, and we'll come back to you folks. A question from Padma Kumar. What are some human leadership traits that are unlikely to be challenged by the growing adoption of artificial intelligence all around? I do believe Vinay was talking about it earlier, right? A little bit around AI, and Annurag mentioned technology. So take it up. What do you think about this?
Yeah, and I just put it there that a lot of us are humans who are doing things, but let's not forget we are human beings. AI can help us do things, but it can never replace us becoming a human being, right? And some of the traits that Anurag talked about, empathy and all of that, that AI can simulate, but can never really truly be that deeper level of stuff. So I'll just see if Anurag wants to add there.
First of all, Dhruti talked of reflection. And one of the reasons me, Paul, and Vinay have done well, because we have real life reflectors. We have installed them, they reflect. So I just wanted to make that point on how to get the reflectors. There's a separate course. But on a serious note on the AI, see, I genuinely believe while we are doing this as a webinar, and the course is digital plus experiential and physical, that the more the AI grows, the value of human touch grows, the value of a face-to-face custom interaction grows. So I don't think AI is a tool. It's like electricity, it's like mobility, whatever. But at the end of where you want to go, life is about asking the right question. AI is also about the right prompts. To be able to ask the right prompts, you also need coaching. You need advice. I mean, in the world of so many tools available online, the face-to-face consulting is only growing, whether it's astrology, whether it's mental health, whether it's a skill-based consulting. You may learn the basics from someone, but if you have to have experiential learning and be more nuanced and advanced, you will have. So I think AI has a huge role to play. It will become better and better. It will mimic human behavior. The singularity will happen much before we can. But I don't think it can be human. And that's being yourself, being authentic, you being feeling and being empathetic, that come from AI. So AI is a tool. It's not a way of being.
Absolutely. We need to start using it as a support mechanism rather than something that we feel threatened about. So absolutely. Thank you so much, Vinay and Annurag, for sharing your views. Also, just coming back to the entire program, Vinay, any other reflections that you've had during your discussions with Paul about the program, or how you see leaders walk out after they've experienced this powerful program?
Yeah, thanks, Ruthi. And I like the concept that Paul put into this, that leadership gym, right? A lot of times leadership programs are 2 days, 3 days, sometimes they take 5 days out. And there's some amazing stuff they learn, but the reality is when they get back to work, they can only go and apply 1 or 2 things. Whereas here, being the virtual, being the workshop, and having it paced, you're almost creating the 21-day habit. You take the virtual session, you get a chance to practice it for a couple of days, maybe work on one of the E's before you go to the next. So it's almost working with your trainer, and over a period of time, you'll start to see results. Because if you're expecting the magic pill, that's not going to happen. So I like the way that it was structured, that it's a journey of going to the gym or leadership gym rather than an event.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do see a message here. Congratulations, Paul, for a very well-structured program. Yeah, absolutely. We are definitely rooting for the success. I think there's a question here for Bilkis. When we talk of leadership, is there a significant impact because of geographies and culture? It'd be interesting to understand how the program will work around these. Paul, I think I'll direct this question to you.
Sure. Sure, it's a great question. Let me just go back to Padma Kumar, is that right? Question earlier. Just briefly about AI. You know, the word AI, let's expand it a bit. Artificial intelligence. What's the key word there? For me, it's artificial. Huh? And to Anurag's point, humans are real. AI is artificial. And when it really comes down to it, and I challenge anyone to go into ChatGPT 4.0, or fast forward, soon it will be 10.0 and 20.0 or whatever, and ask the AI robot how it feels about something, or how it felt when it was leading an organization through the tragedy of COVID. It can't give an answer because it didn't do it. It didn't feel it. And what lessons were learned from that? It certainly simply can't answer with authenticity, where all of us here in the room can, and all leaders who face times of crisis can. And so that's one thing I think until the end of time, a robot will not be able to feel to the point where a human can feel and learn and share wisdom and compassion, not only empathy, but also compassion, take action to help someone in need. So it's really important to remember that as well. But it's a great tool, tech for touch, right? Use technology to give better human touch, leverage it, embrace it. So the question about the universality, I'll say the timelessness and the borderlessness of this program. Well, let's take it to a higher level. And again, I talk about this in my book. This is a discovery I made. It was an aha moment, actually, after having led on the ice hockey rink into the NPO world, and to here in Japan, which is a very unique culture with challenges, into Singapore, across Southeast Asia, and then into incredible India. Then as a member of the global advisory board of a company like Randstad in 39 countries, I discovered that most elements, most muscles of effective leadership are actually universal. They cross cultures, they cross borders. Now, there are some nuances. Let me give you an example. People often ask me, what's the difference between leading in Japan versus leading in India? Well, if you take the world and put it on a line, a continuum, probably Japan and India are in many ways at opposite ends of the continuum. But where it overlaps is that we're all human. So for example, if I were to ask someone in Japan, would you follow a leader who supports you in good times and bad? The answer will be 100% yes. If I ask the same question in India, would you follow a leader who supports you in good times and in bad? The answer will be yes. The interesting thing, if you go around the world, there's a series of questions you can ask. Would you follow a leader who's transparent, who walks the talk, and so on and so on and so on? You'll get yes universally to most of these questions. Where it gets a bit different is in the actual kind of behavior, which is connected to culture. For example, in Japan, many people will know the term Kaizen. Kaizen is really, simply put, is about being a bit better today than you were yesterday. It's about continuous improvement, 1 degree of change. It's meticulous focus on quality. So it's small steps. That's Kaizen, better than yesterday. That's a simple version of Kaizen, right? And then in India, you have this remarkable thing called Jugad. And many people on this call, if you're not from India, you don't know the word Jugad, but believe me, you're going to hear this more and more. Just like Kaizen came into our vocabulary, we'll hear more about Jugad. Jugad is about ingenuity, creativity, just finding a way to achieve the goal, somehow using the resources you have, putting ideas together. It's also about speed. It's about let's try, the spirit of let's just try. And just imagine if you take those two and you bring those together, Jugad and Kaizen. What an amazing combination. That's personal missions. Again, having said that, when you're leading across cultures and borders, it's important to take into account the local culture. And I would say, some people say it's the 80-20 rule. 80% is universal, 20% is cultural. I would say it's even more 90-10. Much of what I did leading in Japan or Singapore, or certainly on the global stage as a European company, I applied when I was in India and vice versa. So a lot of what we do as leaders crosses borders and cultures. Very important to understand that. But of course, there's always a bit of an element of culture that needs to be part of the story. And by the way, Vinay mentioned that I met him on day 2 or 3 when I arrived in India. Absolutely. In fact, Vinay was the one that kind of held my hand in my very first stage when I landed in Bangor, first time living in India, and now faced with being captain of this huge ship with more than 70 offices, 60,000 people. And my mission was to lead the turnaround. This was a struggling operation. It was in trouble. The ship was sinking. It called for courageous decisions. And I was in a very foreign environment. And Vinay helped me through that journey. And so when I talked earlier about, that this is not just theory, this is tried, tested, and proven. Well, a lot of what you see in the gym, certainly in the book, was directly connected to my experience working together with the team at C2C on leading the transformation of a struggling operation from being the worst performer in the world of Randstad globally to becoming one of the best. So it has been proven, again, brought to Japan, used it again to become one of the best performing operating companies in the world. So long answer to your question, but I'm going to say that much of effective leadership is actually borderless and timeless, but there is a need for kind of an understanding of the local lay of the land and the local culture. But this gym is universal. The beauty of this is you walk into a gym in Tokyo, you walk into a gym in Mumbai, you're going to find that the gyms look very similar, right? I'm talking about fitness gyms. Going to be very similar with the leadership journey. Yep.
Thank you so much, Paul, for that. And as Vinay also mentioned earlier, this book is like a case study in itself, where you've lived everything that you've written, and a great reflection again. And I'm sure our leaders would be looking forward to that too. So let's not keep them waiting anymore. Let's share the QR code with them so they can download the program details and get started with the leadership gym. Because as you always say, and it's written over here, you don't get in shape by simply walking into the gym. You have to do the work. Absolutely. So folks, please do scan the QR code. Once again, the first 3 people to download the program details will win a copy of the Rule of 5 leadership book written by Paul Dupuis. So thank you so much. Happy to take any more questions that you have. And congratulations, Paul. We cannot wait to get started on this fantastic journey.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for your support, and I think all of us will agree, none of us got from there to here alone. I'm so grateful for so many who have come along on the journey and believed in this. By the way, we've already been rolling this out in some countries. In Japan, in fact, the leadership gym is already taking off and doing really well, especially the mastermind workshops. And we're seeing big impact with organization, both multinationals and Japanese companies. So I'm very excited to bring this to India and, of course, to the rest of the world. Can I also take this opportunity to mention Annurag, something very special that's coming up in Bangor, November 27th and 28th. I'll be making the journey to Bangalore from here, Tokyo, to give the keynote speech at the Learning and Development Festival. It is one of India's largest gatherings of the best in learning and development. These are the CHROs, the heads of L&D, the heads of talent management, all coming together for 2 days to learn. And so I'll be giving the keynote speech just before the awards on the 28th, thanks to the kind invitation from Annurag and the folks at Businessworld. So we're really looking forward to seeing everyone in person in Bangor. And I'll talk more about my journey in my speech and a little bit more about the Future Ready Leadership Gym and the muscles that are required to lead into.
Yep, absolutely. Vinay, Annurag, any closing notes from you?
Go ahead, Annurag.
I would say you can't know the taste of chocolate if you don't eat it. You can't learn swimming if you don't step into the pool. You can't learn cycling if you don't paddle up. So to learn leadership, you have to practice. This is a gym where you practice leadership. So go for it, make it happen, invest in yourself, and experience the power of tools and experience that can help you become a better leader. Thank you.
Yep, and Annurag said almost what I was going to say, and I was just add, move from thought to action. And I love the quote, you got to do the work. So start doing the work.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It's been wonderful having you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody. Have a great day.
Annurag and Vinay. Thanks, everybody. Have a great
Thanks,
evening.
everyone. Bye.